Rubric scoring criteria. 1 point for each of the factor named to maximum of 5 points. 1 point for each appropriate description of the factors named to maximum of 5 points. No penalty for spelling, punctuation or grammatical error. No extra credit for more than 5 factors named or described. Extraneous information will be ignored. However, when essay items are mirroring higher order thinking skills of cognitive domain, more complex rubrics are mandatory. An example of rubric for writing test in language is given below. Scoring criteria, rubrics for essay type, pattern for 8th grade. Serial number criteria, length, unsatisfactory length of the text will be according to prompt. Length of text will be according to prompt. Length of text will be according to prompt. Layout, writing is not according to provided format. जो फॉर्मेट प्रोवाइड किया गया उसके मुताबिक राइटिंग नहीं है. राइटिंग इज अकॉर्डिंग टू प्रोवाइडेड फॉर्मेट टू सम एक्सटेंट. किसी हद तक जो है फॉर्मेट के मुताबिक राइटिंग है तो फिर वो क्या होगी, प्रोफिशिएंट होगी. एडवांस, राइटिंग इज कम्प्लीटली अकॉर्डिंग टू प्रोवाइडेड फॉर्मेट. राइटिंग जो है वो मुकम्मल तौर पे फॉर्मेट जो दिया गया उसके मुताबिक है. फिर वो क्या होगी, एडवांस होगी. वोकैबुलरी, एक्सपेक्टेड कीवर्ड्स आर नॉट यूज्ड. एक्सपेक्टेड कीवर्ड्स अगर नहीं इस्तेमाल किए गए, मतलब को जो कीवर्ड्स थे वो अनसेटिस्फैक्ट्री होगा. प्रोफिशिएंट, एक्सपेक्टेड वर्ड्स आर यूज टू सम एक्सटेंट. किसी हद तक एक्सपेक्टेड कीवर्ड्स इस्तेमाल किए गए हैं तो फिर वो क्या होगा, प्रोफिशिएंट होगा. एडवांस, एक्सपेक्टेड कीवर्ड्स आर यूज्ड मोस्टली, ज़्यादातर कीवर्ड्स इस्तेमाल किए गए हैं. स्पेलिंग, स्पेलिंग्स ऑफ मोस्ट वर्ड्स आर इनकरेक्ट. ज़्यादातर वर्ड्स के जो स्पेलिंग है वो गलत हैं. स्पेलिंग ऑफ सम वर्ड्स आर इनकरेक्ट. कुछ अल्फाज के स्पेलिंग जो है वो गलत हैं. फिर वो ऐसे जो है वो क्या होगा, प्रोफिशिएंट होगा. एडवांस में क्या होता है, स्पेलिंग ऑफ ऑल वर्ड्स आर करेक्ट. तमाम वर्ड्स के, तमाम अल्फाज के जो स्पेलिंग है वो ठीक है. क्राइटेरिया, सिलेक्शन एंड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ऑफ आइडियाज़. इसमें आपने क्या चीज़ चेक करनी है, फ्यू आइडियाज़ आर रेलिवेंट टू टास्क एंड द गिवन टास्क ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. चंद एक आइडियाज़ जो हैं वो टास्क के साथ मुताबिकत रखते हैं. प्रोफिशिएंट, सम आइडियाज़ आर रेलिवेंट टू द टास्क एंड द गिवन टास्क ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. चंद एक आइडियाज़ जो हैं, कुछ आइडियाज़ जो हैं वो टास्क के मुताबिकत रखते हैं. ऑलमोस्ट ऑल आइडियाज़ आर रेलिवेंट टू टास्क एंड द गिवन टास्क ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. तमाम आइडियाज़ जो हैं वो टास्क के साथ मुताबिकत रखते हैं. फिर वो ऐसे कौन सा होगा, एडवांस होगा. पंक्चुएशन, वेरी फ्यू पंक्चुएशन मार्क्स आर यूज्ड. चंद एक पंक्चुएशन के मार्क्स इस्तेमाल किए गए हैं. सम पंक्चुएशन मार्क्स आर यूज्ड. कुछ यूज़ किए गए हों तो फिर क्या होगा, प्रोफिशिएंट होगा. ऑलमोस्ट ऑल पंक्चुएशन मार्क्स आर यूज. तमाम पंक्चुएशन मार्क्स इस्तेमाल किए गए हों तो फिर क्या होगा, एडवांस होगा. ग्रामर, यूज़ ऑफ सम बेसिक ग्रामर रूल्स. अगर चंद एक बेसिक ग्रामर रूल्स इस्तेमाल किए गए हैं तो फिर वो अनसेटिस्फैक्ट्री है. प्रोफिशिएंट में क्या होगा, ओकेजनली यूज ऑफ बेसिक ग्रामर रूल्स. यूज़ ऑफ सम बेसिक ग्रामर रूल्स तो फिर क्या होगा, वो एडवांस होगा. एडवांटेजेस ऑफ एसे टाइप पैटर्न्स. एसे टाइप पैटर्न्स के एडवांटेजेस क्या हैं, द मेन एडवांटेजेस ऑफ एसे टाइप टेस्ट आर एज फॉलोज. दे कैन मेजर complex learning outcomes which cannot be measured by other means. इससे complex learning outcomes जो हैं वो ऐसे से आप मेजर कर सकते हैं जो कि दूसरों टेस्टों से नहीं हो सकते. They emphasize integration and application of thinking and problem solving skills. ये जोर देता है इंटीग्रेशन पे और थिंकिंग को अप्लाई करने पे और मसाइल को हल करने की टेक्निकों पे, सहलियतों पे. दे कैन बी ईजली कंस्ट्रक्टेड. इसको बनाना आसान होता है. दे गिव एग्जामिनीज फ्रीडम टू रिस्पॉन्ड विद इन ब्रॉड लिमिट्स. ब्रॉड लिमिट्स के अंदर जो है वो रिस्पॉन्ड करते हैं। द स्टूडेंट्स कैन नॉट गैस द आंसर, स्टूडेंट जो है वो आंसर गैस नहीं कर सकते, बिकॉज दे हैव टू सप्लाई इट रेदर देन सेलेक्ट इट। इसमें आपने सप्लाई करना होता है बजाय सेलेक्ट करने के। प्रैक्टिकली इट इज़ मोर इकोनॉमिकल टू यूज़ ऐसे टाइप टेस्ट इफ नंबर ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स इज स्मॉल। प्रैक्टिकली ये ज़्यादातर इकोनॉमिकली है इस्तेमाल करने में जब स्टूडेंट्स जो है वो कम हो। दे रिक्वायर लेस टाइम फॉर टाइपिंग, इसमें टाइपिंग के लिए वक्त कम ज़रूरत होती है। डुप्लीकेटिंग और प्रिंटिंग के लिए भी कम वक्त लगता है। दे कैन बी रिटन ऑन द ब्लैक बोर्ड, इससे आप ब्लैक बोर्ड पे भी लिख सकते हैं। आल्सो इफ़ नंबर ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स इज नॉट लार्ज, अगर स्टूडेंट जो हैं वो ज़्यादा ना हो। दे कैन मेजर डाइवर्जेंट थिंकिंग, इससे डाइवर्जेंट थिंकिंग भी मालूम की जा सकती है। दे कैन बी यूज्ड एज ए डिवाइस फॉर measuring एंड improving लैंग्वेज एंड एक्सप्रेशन स्किल ऑफ examinees. They are more helpful in evaluating the quality of the teaching process. Studies have spotted that when students know that the essay type questions will be asked, they focus on learning broad concepts and articulating relationships, contrasting and comparing. They set better standards of professional ethics to the teachers because they expect more time in assessing and scoring from the teachers. Limitations of essay type items. The essay type test have the following serious limitations as a measuring instrument. A major problem is the lack of consistency in judgments even among content examiners. They have halo effects. If the examiner is measuring one characteristic, he can influence in scoring by another characteristic. For example, a well-behaved student may score more marks on account of his good behavior also. They have question to question carry effect. If the examinee has answered satisfactory in the beginning of the question or questions, he is likely to score more than the one who did not do well in the beginning but did well on later. They have examinee to examinee carry effect. A particular examinee gets marks not only on the basis of what he has written but also on basis that whether the previous examinee whose answered book was examined by the examiner was good or bad. They have limited content validity because of sample of questions can only be asked in essay type test. They are difficult to score objectively because the examinee has wide freedom of expression and he writes long answers. They are time consuming both for examiner and examinee. इम्तिहान देने वाले और चेक करने वाले दोनों के लिए टाइम कंज्यूमिंग है. They generally emphasize the lengthy enumeration of memorized fact. Suggestions for writing essay type test. Ask questions or establish tasks that will require the student to demonstrate command of essential knowledge. This means that students should not be asked merely to reproduce material heard in a lecture or read in a textbook. To demonstrate command, require that the question be somewhat novel or new. The substance of the question should be essential knowledge rather than trivia that might be good board game question. Ask questions that are determinate in the sense that experts, colleagues in the field could agree and that one answer is better than another. Questions that contain phrases such as what do you think or what your opinion about are interminate. They can be used as a medium for assessing skill in written expression, but because they have no clearly right or wrong answer, they are useless for measuring other aspects of achievement. Define the examiner's task as completely and specifically as possible without interfering with the measurement process itself. It is possible to word an essay atom so precisely that there is one and only one very brief answer to it. The imposition of such rigid bound on the response is more limiting than it is helpful. Examinees do well guidance, however, to judge how extensive their response must be considered complete and accurate. Generally give preference to specific questions that can be answered briefly. The more question used, the better the test constructor can sample the domain of knowledge covered by the test, and the more response available for scoring, the more accurate the total test scores are likely to be. In addition, brief responses can be scored more quickly and more accurately than long extended responses, even when they are a fewer of later type. Use enough atoms to sample the relevant content domain adequately, but not so many that students do not have sufficient time to plan, develop, and review their responses. Some instructors use essay tests rather than one of the objective types because they want to encourage and provide practice in written expression. However, when time pressures become great, the essay test is one of the most unrealistic and negative writing experiences to which student can be exposed. Often there is no time for editing, for rereading, or for checking spelling. Planning time is shortchanged so that student time will not be. There are few, if any, real writing tasks that require such conditions, and there are few writing experiences and discourage the use of good writing habits as much as testing does. Avoid giving examinees a choice among optional questions unless special circumstances make such options necessary. The use of optional atom destroys the strict comparability between student scores because not all students actually take the same test. Student A may have answered atom 1 to 3 and student B may have answered 3 to 5. In these circumstances, the variability of score is likely to be quite small because students were able to respond to atoms they knew more about and ignore atoms with which they were unfamiliar. This reduced variability contributes to reduced test score reliability. That is, we are less able to identify individual differences in achievement when the test scores from a very homogeneous distribution. In some optional atoms restrict score comparability between students and contribute to low score reliability due to reduced test score variability. Test the question by writing an ideal answer to it. An ideal response is needed eventually to score the responses. If is prepared early, it permits a check on the wording of the atom. The level of completeness required for an ideal response and the amount of time required to furnish a suitable response. It even allows the atom writer to determine if there is an incorrect response to the question. Specify the time allotment of each atom and or specify the maximum number of points to be awarded for the best answer to the question. Both pieces of information provide guidance to the examinee about the depth of response expected by the atom writer. They also represent legitimate pieces of information a student can use to decide. Often the number of points attached to the atom reflects the number of essential parts to the ideal response. Of course, if a definite number of essential parts can be determined, that number should be indicated as a part of question. Divide a question into separate components where there are obvious multiple questions or pieces to be intended response. The use of parts helps examinees organizationally and hence makes the process more efficient. It also makes the grading process easier because it encourages organization in the responses. Finally, if multiple questions are not identified, some examinees may in, inadvertently omit some parts, especially when time constraints